Good day, everyone. This is episode number 4 in our series of self assessment and self improvement. As mentioned in the previous episode, we want to have an objective comparison when it comes to the standards that we compare ourselves to. So, as you're assessing yourself, and personally, as I mentioned in episode 3, I hold myself accountable. And the standard that I use is the teachings within my own religion. I avoid comparing myself to anyone, for I know that there will be a trap that I'm setting myself to fall into if I compare myself to somebody else. The only person that I do actually compare myself to is our own prophet, and because he lived by the standards that he was preaching. But as far as humans that live with me, friends, family members, I don't compare myself to anyone. I may compare certain behaviors that I have to certain behaviors that somebody else has, but it's more of a behavior to behavior, but not an absolute person to an absolute person. Now, for me, it's a lot easier to actually carry myself and conduct myself, thus also performing the self-assessment and self-improvement, knowing that in my own book that I follow, the holy book that I follow, the definitions for those terms are clear and explained, and even with examples of how somebody could actually uphold themselves to those standards. So I don't really get lost in the definition. But actually, a few days ago, I asked my students the question. I said, what characteristics do you have? What are the things that actually you have as a person? The good ones, of course. So some of them, they spoke about their loyalty to their friends, their honesty, and a number of other things, which I'm sure anyone who's listening will list a few of those. And then I asked them, give me the definition for each one. Further, I asked them to give me examples. And not to my surprise, they failed to give me the absolute definition for any one of them. And no one can say each one of these has an absolute definition. And then I asked him, I said, if you are defining yourself with a specific term, meaning a characteristics that you have, or a certain behavior that you feel that you have, or a certain way that you conduct yourself in, but you fail to at least define that term, or even when you give me the example, I find myself relating that to a different term that probably you did not even relate to. And that is an issue that we have. For instance, I mentioned to them one example that people actually say about themselves. They say, well, I'm a very honest and a straightforward person. But somebody else comes and says, that is the rudest person that I've met. And being honest and straightforward, to some people, it means you just say it the way it is. But they don't take into consideration the feelings of the person who's on the receiving end. So when I gave my students different examples, a number of them who thought they were loyal said maybe we're not loyal after all. And those who were honest, they said maybe we're not honest after all. And those who thought they were truthful realized that they might be telling the truth sometimes, but it doesn't mean that they are absolutely truthful. So that was more of like identity crisis for some of us when we actually face the one thing that we probably never thought that we should face. And that is the question, who am I really? Do I really actually hold myself up to those standards that I actually claim to be holding myself up to? And what does it mean to have something compared to not having it but always striving to have it? And that's the next point that I want to cover. Somebody actually in my class said, I am not perfect. I try to tell the truth as often as I can. And I do find myself not telling the truth sometimes. And I really appreciate that coming from a student who was a teenager. And that is what I really actually define myself. I am not an absolute, whatever characteristics that somebody actually likes to define themselves with. But I strive. I strive towards not perfection, but I strive towards improvement. If yesterday I was telling more truth than the day before, then I'm actually on the right track. I may fail to tell the truth all the time, but at least I know that I do my best to tell the truth every single time. So that is one thing that actually I strongly believe that we have to do, is understand the definition of every term that we would like to use to define or label ourselves with. Even when you are assessing yourself and you're looking at the negative things that you don't like about yourself, are they all really that negative? Because one of the failures that actually we face in life is when we try to fix something that is not even there. So in the next episode, I will talk about examples of things that we feel that we have to improve, yet there may be no room for us to improve. Until then, God bless you and have a great day.